Hey everybody, Dan here. You know, when I think of the word neighbor, I have a lot of thoughts that come to mind. In fact, I have a lot of thoughts as a kid when I think about the word neighbor. I think about what it was like in my summertime with my neighbors, and they had lots of kids. And so we'd go out, most evenings in the summer, we'd be out late at night playing games. I know most days we'd be out, in fact, yeah, just in front of our house there playing all kinds of games, with hockey, all kinds of things. And it was great. But I know for Jesus, he had a different idea of neighbor. It wasn't just the people though that lived around you, but it though could be even past that. And so in Luke chapter 10, he even talks about this a little bit. He has a conversation with a man who comes to Jesus, and he says, "What do I have to do to inherit eternal life?" And so for Jesus asks him and says, what does it say in the law? I mean, what does it say like in their version of the Bible back then? And the man says, you're supposed to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so the man keeps talking with Jesus, but then he has another question for Jesus. But who is my neighbor, he asks. And so for Jesus, he shares this story about a man on a road who, he's there walking, and all of a sudden he gets beat, he gets mugged, and he's left for dead on the side of the road. He's stripped naked, left there by himself to die. And on the way, he has three different men pass him. And so the first two men walk right by him. They want nothing to do with him. They just ignore him. But the third man walks by and he stops to help. And what's so important about this third man is he is a Samaritan. And so the man on the side of the road is Jewish. And see, back then in those days, those two groups of people hated each other. They never once had any kind of dealings with each other, not even in business, nothing like that, because they just had this kind of hatred toward each other. It stems back a long time. And so they were seen as almost kind of, right, they just did not, though, yeah, like each other at all. But for the third man, he stops and he helps them, even though puts the man up on his donkey and he takes them to the nearest, I think, yeah, motel, and he kind of stops to the innkeeper there. He says, can you keep this man for, they have 3 days, and I'll come back and I'll pay for all the expenses you spend on him, whether it's for, food, medicine, whatever. I'm going to pay to help him. And so what's interesting about this story that we read here from Jesus is that he expands on what it means to be a neighbor, right? It's not, though, just about those who live even right beside you. And it's not just about those people that you like. In fact, that's kind of a misconception about what it means, though. I would think even kind of like to be a neighbor to somebody is that you have to like them. I don't really see that here in this passage, but instead what I see is you're willing to stop for anybody who needs help. And I think nowadays, I think this is really important right now in the season we're living in, is because there's a lot of people all around us that need help. There's a lot of people who are hurting, who just need someone to come alongside them and to help them in a certain way. And now I know what you're thinking as a student. You're thinking, yeah, but what can I really do? I can't necessarily drive to go get someone groceries. Maybe some of you can. But I know for the most part, there's a lot of you thinking, how can I help out my neighbors these days? How can I help out those in need? I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of things on my hands. How can I help out someone else who's in need? Okay, well, here's something to think about as we think about who's in need these days. I think a lot of us are in need these days. One of the biggest things we need is each other, right? Because we're stuck inside our homes. We can't go anywhere. You're not in school anymore. You can't hang out with your friends. But there's a sense of loneliness happening right now. So what does it mean for you to be a neighbor to somebody who is lonely? And so here's my challenge for you this week, just to think about maybe doing this. Okay, I want you to think about 3 people, though, this week that you haven't talked to in, say, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, right? That you haven't reached out to. And you're not sure how they're doing. It could be a friend from school, it could be a friend from youth group, it could be whatever, right? But I want you to think about those 3 people for a moment, and then I just want you to I think, pause and ask yourself, how do I think they're doing right now? And if they're anything like you, they might be getting along just fine, but they're probably lonely. They probably miss their friends. They probably miss people. And so here's my challenge to do with those names this week. I want you just to reach out to those 3 people just in a small way. It could be through a text, it could be through a phone call, it could be through, something to do on, Messenger, email, whatever it is. But just to send them a message, make a phone call, just to simply ask them how they're doing, right? Because I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. In fact, that's my challenge for you, to take those names and put them on a list, and to put that list somewhere where you can see it. I know this is something I'm really big into these days, making a list. Right, but I think the list is important because I think it helps you as a reminder to know what you ought to be doing with your life this week. It can be so easy for the rest of this week just to do whatever you want. and just, kind of have fun on your own. But maybe you're put here, maybe you're here in this season, not to just play all the video games you want, not to just make all the videos on TikTok you want, but rather you're put here to help someone else out who's in need. And there's many people in need who are right around you who just simply need you to say hi. Okay, so that's my challenge for you this week, just to want to say hi to a few people this week, and then do it the following week and the following week. You can even do, I have a friend of mine, he has a name of probably 20 people on his list that he goes through almost every 2 weeks just to check in, just to see how they're doing. And so maybe your list starts to grow over the weeks and you start to say, I'm going to add that person, that person, that person. But this is a season where we need each other desperately. And so this is my challenge to you guys, that you would want to reach out to people, and in fact, that you would see what it means for Jesus to be a neighbor, right? That you would be like him in the same way. He loved to be a neighbor to people. He would stop and help people constantly. He would have conversations with people just to check in to see how they're doing. We need to be the same way today to others. All right, guys. In the comments below, I'm going to have probably questions for you to think about as you kind of go into this week, and for you to think about later on in small groups this week as well. All right, guys, have a really good week, and we'll see you later.